In breaking news earlier today, Jussie Smollett's conviction in Illinois court was overturned today by the Illinois Supreme Court. Now, just to get out ahead of all this, some people are going to try to say that this means he didn't actually conduct this hate crime on himself. That's not what was being adjudicated here. The reason the Illinois Supreme Court decided to overturn this is because of procedural issues with the manner in which he was actually prosecuted to begin with. Now, just to be clear, I'm not a lawyer or a legal expert or anything like that. There's probably a lot of other people online who could give you more of a legal insight onto why this happened. This is me just kind of reading articles about it and also doing a little bit of research on my own to try to understand what actually happened here. So I will kind of go into details on that one, or at least what I was able to find on this one, and also what I think this means for the future of Jussie Smollett's career, because ultimately, I don't think this is really going to matter a whole lot. But let's look at this article from Variety with the headline, Jussie Smollett's conviction overturned in alleged hate crime hoax. And I guess you don't really have to say it's alleged at this point. It was determined by a court that it was a hoax hate crime. We even have the people, the Osendian brothers, who did this. They admitted it and they explained exactly how they went about it. So you don't really have to say it was an alleged hate crime hoax. It was a hate crime hoax. It's just he's not going to see any jail time as a result of all this. The Empire actor was convicted in December 2021 of 5 felony counts of disorderly conduct for allegedly staging a hate crime against himself in 2019 and was sentenced to 150 days in county jail plus 30 months of probation and $130,000 in restitution. This came after the original charges against him were dropped in March 2019, but the case was picked back up when the Cook County State's attorney asked the state to conduct an independent inquiry with a special prosecutor. And that's really the catalyst for why this is being overturned, because according to the Illinois Supreme Court, they shouldn't have had a special prosecutor to begin with, because there were certain terms that were set by the prosecutor initially that Jussie Smollett agreed to in favor of these charges being dropped. But then afterwards, he got charged again by the special prosecutor. And that's why the Illinois Supreme Court is saying you really can't do that. In an opinion released on Thursday, the Illinois Supreme Court found that the special prosecutor's decision to retry Smollett violated his rights. And this is according to the Illinois Supreme Court and during their ruling on this issue. We are aware that this case has generated significant public interest and that many people were dissatisfied with the resolution of the original case and believed it to be unjust. The court's opinion reads, nevertheless, what would be more unjust than the resolution of any one criminal case would be holding from this court that the state was not bound to honor agreements upon which people have detrimentally relied. And what they're saying here is because the terms for Jussie Smollett initially when the prosecutors initially were going to charge him was that if he gave up his $10,000 bond initially and then agreed to community service, they would not charge him and they would drop the case. And that's something that prosecutors have the power to do. Instead of having to go through the whole court system and tie that up, for certain situations, they can do what's called a non-prosecution agreement, which is basically they come up with terms for the suspect of the crime. If they agree with it, well, then they can just continue on. It's kind of like a plea bargain, but without even having to bother going through the court to begin with. And that's kind of what they did. So like I said, it says right here, agrees to take part in community service and forfeit his $10,000 bond, and then they'll drop all the charges from there. Of course, there was some dubious nature in which this was actually transpired, which is why a lot of people were upset with the charges initially being dropped, as the Illinois Supreme Court already pointed out. And a lot of the reasons why people were upset with that is because there's a connection between Jussie Smollett and the district attorney of Chicago. So people were saying like, that just seems like corruption right there. So that's why the state's attorney decided to appoint a special prosecutor to look into this further. Be like, well, no, the DA, you can't decide to drop the charges and for essentially a slap on the wrist when you have this personal connection to Jussie Smollett. So we're going to have someone else, a third party who's non-biased, actually make the ruling on this one, which they determined like, oh no, there is evidence to say that he should be charged with this. So they went through the trial and he was convicted of it. And that's why he was starting to appeal this. But of course, the Illinois Supreme Court is like, no, that initial agreement was satisfactory enough. We can't have someone agree to terms like that and then all of a sudden come back and then try to say, like, retry them later on. Some people will say this is double jeopardy, and that's not what double jeopardy is. Double jeopardy only applies if it went through the whole process. So you can decide to drop charges on someone and then recharge them later on for the same crime. Double jeopardy would be like if you charge them, went through the trial, they were found not guilty, and then tried to recharge them later on for the same crime. You can't do that, but since he never actually went through the trial, it's a different situation. Now, when it comes to the non-prosecution agreements that he agreed to, you can charge someone later on for that. There's certain parameters in which that can be done. Just because you do that, that doesn't necessarily mean you can never be charged for it again. But according to the Illinois Supreme Court in this particular case, that was satisfactory enough for the prosecution, and that's why his conviction is being overturned. And like I said before, though, this isn't to say that he didn't actually do this hate crime on himself. It's just saying that he's not going to have to face the punishment because that initial agreement of forfeiting the $10,000 bond and the community service is, according to the Illinois Supreme Court, a satisfactory enough punishment for this case. After this ruling, the special prosecutor, Dan Webb, who indicted Jussie Smollett, made a statement on this. In a statement to the press after the conviction was overturned, Webb said, "Make no mistake, today's ruling has nothing to do with Mr. Smollett's innocence. The Illinois Supreme Court did not find any error with the overwhelming evidence presented at trial that Mr. Smollett orchestrated a fake hate crime and reported it to the Chicago Police Department as a real hate crime, or the jury's unanimous verdict that Mr. Smollett was guilty of 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct. In fact, Mr. Smollett did not even challenge the sufficiency of the evidence against him in his appeal to the Illinois Supreme Court." So yeah, Jussie Smollett's lawyers aren't even trying to argue that he didn't actually do this thing. They were just trying to argue that he shouldn't have been convicted a second time, or at least these additional punishments that the conviction levied on him shouldn't apply to him because he already faced his punishment. Now, kind of getting back to the meat of all this, like what's this going to do for Jussie Smollett? And I don't think it's going to do a ton for him because unfortunately for him, doing this stunt really damaged his reputation and his career. Now, he's not going to have to face any jail time as a result of all this. What did it say? It was like 6 months. He's not going to have to pay that $130,000 fine and restitution or anything like that. But his reputation is already gone. I can't see a lot of places wanting to hire him as a result of all this because of just how he is now. Forever, his name is going to be synonymous when it comes to fake hate crimes. When people pull a fake hate crime, it's going to be pulling a Jussie Smollett. People already know it as such. And that's not going to go away, especially since this isn't saying that he never did that. That wasn't even up for debate. We know for a fact he did this thing. His accomplices even said as much, that it was a fake hate crime. So that's pretty much what he has to live with. His career at pretty much in any meaningful way is done. Not that he really had much of a career to begin with. Most people didn't even know of him before this happened. And now the only thing people know about him is that he's the guy who tried to create a race war in order to try to prop up his own career. And that's really what's going to stand out. So, he basically is going to have what career he had before this is essentially done at this point. He has no reputation whatsoever. He's not going to have to face any jail time. But like I said, when he was convicted, no one was really thinking like, okay, good, he deserves to go to jail for 6 months. I mean, maybe some people were saying that, or some people were kind of laughing about the prospect that he's going to be in jail for 6 months. And personally, a guy like him, he'd probably enjoy that, if you know what I mean. But that really wasn't the big thing here. The whole thing was just the fact that it was confirmed that he did orchestrate a fake hate crime in order to try to damage the reputation or try to basically make white conservatives look bad. And it just kind of blew up in his face. And now he's going to have to carry that for the rest of his life. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, because like I said, I don't think this is really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. If anything, maybe it's good for him that he's not going to have to go to jail at all, but still it's not going to help him in the long run. So I don't think it's really that big of a deal that it got overturned, but some people might disagree with me on that one. So comment below if you do, and why do you think that much? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest in entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.